What if the secret to building confidence, connection, and community was truly just hitting record? This week in the Podcast Cafe, I'm joined by business mentor, serial entrepreneur, and podcast host, Katy. She is the host of #ActuallyICan. Katy's journey into podcasting didn't start as a marketing strategy. It started as a way of sharing truth, connection, and real stories that often get left off the highlight reel. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You will learn so much from Katy. I cannot wait for you to dive in. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe, where we're serving up everything you need to know about podcasting, from tips, stories, and strategies for podcasters from podcasters. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the founder of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency helping business owners, creatives, and thought leaders launch and grow their shows. Whether you're just starting out or want to take your podcast to the next level, this is the place for you. Each week, we'll dive into practical tips, actionable strategies, and of course, stories from other podcasters so that you can build up a podcast that you love and that works for your business. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe. Hey, Katy, welcome into the Podcast Cafe. I am so excited to be chatting with you today.
Same, girl. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
So this is the first question I ask all of my guests, and I feel like it will pertain to you more than others owning a coffee shop. What is your go-to coffee order?
Oh, I'm so boring. I have a whole milk latte.
Okay.
No flavor. Otherwise, I drink coffee, drip coffee with half and half.
That's okay.
It's boring, right? Like, I mean, I have a plethora of syrups and things to drink, but it's just coffee. I'm old. We didn't have those syrups when I started drinking coffee, so.
The classics are great, and it's so funny. Yeah. Before we pressed record, we both had to run off and get our coffee. Mine's from my kitchen. Yours is from your coffee shop.
Yes, I'm real lucky that my coffee shop is literally right next to my office, and we have a smart app too, and so sometimes I order like a latte on my app, and then somebody will just bring it to me.
Okay, I love that. Do you have like orders that a lot of people get? Is there like a regional order that's really popular? Like, I'm in Washington and we have these little coffee huts everywhere, and they get so creative with their, flavors and everything.
Yeah. So we have a number one seller. It's our caramel cream, which is a caramel, like Hollander caramel sauce plus, so it's really thick, and then plus syrup, caramel syrup. So it is caramel-y. And then we do 2 or 3 featured drinks every month.
Okay, delish. So we should probably talk about podcasting, right?
Yeah.
Since we're in the Podcast Cafe. So you are the host of the podcast #ActuallyICan, which you're going to tell us all about. So why don't you start by telling us more about what you do and why you started this podcast?
Yeah, so I am a small business mentor, business coach. I work primarily with female entrepreneurs, and I had already had a podcast. So just like a backstory of podcasting, a friend of mine, I quit drinking 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And I had a friend who was still drinking at the time, like all of my friends were. And we decided to start a podcast called Mocks and Cocks. It was mocktails and cocktails, nothing dirty. And it was called The Happiest of Hours. And we really just talked about literally drinking and not drinking. And we're from Wisconsin, which you'll probably be able to tell by my accent. But this culture is we drink a lot. We drink a lot in this culture. And I was a drinker. I'm a retired drinker. I hung up my drinking boots, so to speak. And while things have changed over the last 2 or 3 years in the drinking scene, and we see a lot more non-alcoholic options and that sort of thing, at the time, even, in 2020, 21, it was sort of taboo still to not drink. People are still like, oh my God, what kind of problem do you have? Were you drinking all day? Were you drinking out of a paper bag, right? Like, were you in jail? I mean, it was like, you couldn't decide that it was just not serving you anymore, which is what I did. And so we just really wanted to open up the conversation about it. And so we did. We did, 35 maybe episodes. It was hilarious. It was fun. We had such a great time doing it. We realized it's so much work. It's not just flipping on a camera and a microphone and talking into a void, and then it just goes out to everyone. It was editing and marketing and answering people's questions. And we were doing everything ourselves. So as a producer, like this is a job. There are lots of producers that have full-time jobs doing this. And it, like almost all of the podcasts out there, right? You get to a certain point where it's like too much to do and then you fall off. And that's what happened to us. It got to a point we were putting them out weekly. We were recording them weekly. And by Tuesday, we had my friend Bridget, who was doing all of the editing. She also had a full-time job. I had multiple businesses we were running. We were doing hour-long segments. So for her to edit it was taking her 2 or 3 hours. And then I was doing all the marketing, and then we were putting them out every week. Well, we lost 1 week, right? Like we just didn't get to it for whatever reason. We had a dog die and I was on a cruise and whatever. And all of a sudden it was just like, holy shit, this is so much work. And we were not getting paid for it. So it was also hard to justify like, wow, we were putting so much time into this and there's no payout monetarily. And we were burning ourselves out. In any case, that sort of fell apart. But I love to hear myself talk, like most podcasters do, I think. And so I really loved the podcast format. And I really wanted to talk about all the things, right? Like death, grief, sobriety, money, all these taboo topics that were sort of out there. And I felt like my message needed to be shared, but I didn't necessarily love sharing it on Instagram all the time. Like, it's sort of like you kind of go into a void. I had some really great stories of people that I knew that I was like, your story really needs to be out there. I went into it with a very neutral goal of basically, I just wanted a platform where people could tell their stories, where I could share some of my small business mentoring and coaching advice to the masses for free. It was also a business move. I'm coaching small business owners, entrepreneurs. And so I thought, this is just going to be a business expense for me. It's a marketing expense. I'm going to put this out there. I hired a producer because I'm smart. I learn lessons. And I said, if I'm going to do this, all I want to do is talk into the void, right? I just want to be able to talk and give it to somebody else. And so I said, I'm just going to have this as a marketing expense. If I get a few clients out of it, it's going to pay for itself. It'll be fine. And I started with the intention of a couple of times a month, I would have a guest on, and a couple of times a month, I would do my own solo episode. Well, it got to be where every single week I was doing guest interviews, which is a lot because, as you know, it's setting people up for it. It's making sure that they have the right equipment. And I had a producer for this, but I was doing all of that part on my own. I didn't contract her for that. And I said, and then it was just, I got into the same sort of pattern that I did before, which was I was sort of always behind the 8 ball. I had like 6 episodes stacked up at the beginning, but then like I missed a week, or I'd have 2 in 1 week or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden I was like doing an interview 1 week and she was getting it out the next Monday. And it put a bunch of pressure on her, put a bunch of pressure on me I did not love. And having said all of that, I loved the interviews I was doing. I did sort of everything from, my first episode ever was a woman that's dying of stage 4 breast cancer. She's 80 years old and she has totally accepted this, and here's her bucket list for the rest of her life, sort of. Shortly after that, I had a friend of mine on who lost her daughter to cancer at 18 months. I've talked to people about grief because I lost my father-in-law at 59 super unexpectedly. And then we've talked about money. We've talked about diets. We've talked about weight loss. We've talked about all of these different things. And what I realized was there wasn't like a great theme for it. It was just sort of like people that have made the decision to move forward with whatever obstacle they've had and just sort of like had an fuck it, actually I can do this moment, which I loved so much. But from a business standpoint, from I'm spending money to do this every month, I wasn't getting anything in return really. And it came down to like the stress of it and the cute and well-intended comments of, God, I love to listen to your podcast. I just never know what to expect. Like,
oh, gosh.
That's it's a cute comment and I love it. But at the same time, it was like, it kind of was like, oh shit. I need to have some, like, people need to sort of know what to expect. So I'm 40 episodes in and I have done a little bit of a pivot where I am still going to have guests on, but probably only once a month. It's going to turn a little bit more towards female entrepreneurs, really some concrete advice, some really great practical things that people can do to live a life that you can still say, fuck it, actually, I can do that. But also do it in a way where it's not almost aggressive. I think that there was a time that I was like, fuck you, actually, I can do this. Right. And now I'm in a like way different space where it's like, yes, actually you can live a life that you want to live. You can create it however you want to create it. You don't have to conform to society. You don't have to conform to old limiting beliefs. You can run a business heart-led and soul-led, and you can feel really good and you can love what you do and you can do these things instead of like kind of a fuck you. So you'll see the transition here. So it started out as one thing, but I think that's sort of the beautiful thing about a podcast is it just like it can evolve from week to week. And I think if people find a connection to you, they don't really care what you're talking about. I mean, they do to a certain extent. It has to somewhat relate to their lives, but mostly the podcasts I listen to, lots of them have changed. Lots of them have like shifted.
Absolutely.
That was a really long answer to your question.
No, thank you for walking us through that because I think a lot of podcasters need that validation that their podcast can change. And I'm actually hosting a masterclass soon. It'll happen by the time that this is already live, but it's about how so many podcasters start with an intention and then eventually it just all turns out to be guest episodes, like you're saying. That's really common, where we start with all these ideas for ourselves. We start with all of these topics, and then we look at our data, which some podcasters don't look at the data. We look at the data and we're like, well, my solo episodes are getting a ton of listens and my guest episodes are getting like hit or miss listens. Well, what that tells me, as it, like looking at data, is saying that your listeners want to hear what you have to say. Right? We're the constant in all of our podcast episodes. We might have great guests, but truly our audience is coming for us. They're coming for you, Katy, because they love what you share. They love the ideas, the message, your life stories, hearing how you actually did it. You know, you said, fuck it, I can do it. And then you did it. So
it's interesting you say that. And it's almost, that part is hard to hear, I think. I've had people say to me, like, I want to hear more of you. Honestly, they've just said it to my face. And that's sort of hard to hear because, of course, as a society, we're like, no, I'm not special, or I'm not, I'm not good, or whatever. Like, you can't really admit it, right? Like, you can't take that and be like, oh, yeah, actually, I should probably do more of what people want. Instead, we're like, no, you'll love this next story of somebody else. And so that has been really hard for me. I think it's just a very common human nature thing. Yeah. We've been sort of pushed into a corner of, well, we can't really accept a compliment. We can't, I mean, you can, but you also have to like give it some sort of a justification for it or whatever. And actually my podcast producer said the same things, like these people actually want to hear more of you. Like, all of your solo episodes have gotten way more numbers than the other ones. So why are we continuing to do this? But I think it is sort of a protective thing. Yeah. And I wonder if that's like it's pretty vulnerable to be out here by yourself.
Oh my God, it's terrifying.
Like talking to the void.
Yeah.
And I'm also a much better conversationalist than I am solo, like just talking to someone. I think that comes with practice too, but
yeah,
I like to be asked questions. I like to be interviewed, and it's easier to do that and just have, it's just easier. It's easier and more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I sort of had to practice what I preach is get your fucking ass out there and do it. And I can pivot. I can change. Very likely I will pick up more people this way because it's more of what I talk about. It's more of what I really want to share with the world, which is I want more women to be able to design their own lives on their own terms and run their businesses the same way. It's not that people that I've interviewed in the past have not done that. I just want to be able to share some of my experiences and some of the things I've learned from doing it myself. And I also have some coaching background, which I can help people with, which is basically free coaching. And that is what I want to share. So having said, you know, what you said about like just pivoting and like doing, we also hear, and maybe you can talk about this too, like there's so many podcasts. Like, oh, you're starting a fucking podcast? Like there's so many. Like another podcast? Yes, another podcast.
Yes.
Like shut up. Who cares? Like, oh, another Instagram account? Yep. Like,
right.
There are
right.
8 billion people in the world. I genuinely or generally also serve women. So that's 4 billion people. I only need to serve like if I can serve 1,000 people, I'd be thrilled.
Yep.
So I bet 1,000 people will listen to more than one podcast. I listened to tons of podcasts. So, you know, there's Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and, well, I guess they're Dunkin' now, but, you know, Crossroads Coffee House, which is my coffee shop, and Grace Coffee. I mean, I can name off 50 coffee shops that are all flourishing. You can have more than one podcast. Yes. You can have more than one business. People do more than one thing. They might be loyal to somebody, but they're also, I mean, I go to Starbucks. I own my own coffee shop and go to Starbucks when it's convenient for me. So for us to like get pigeonholed into like, oh my God, another podcast. Yes. Fuck you. Another podcast. Like just own it. Do it. People ask me all the time. They're like, oh, I want to start a podcast. I'm like, do it. Like, don't do it the way Bridget and I did it.
You're like have help. Have some help.
I'm always like, if you're going to do a podcast, I totally get it. But this is how much it cost me. And this is how much it's going to cost you, because I will tell you, you cannot do this for free.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think people need to know that if you're going to do it well, can you record it in your closet? Yes. Can you edit it on your own? Absolutely. It is also a job and a grind. It is a consistent job, not for 10 episodes, right? Like if you want to stick around, it's got to be consistent and it's got to be for the long haul. And I don't know, like it's fun when you're first learning it and it's cute, but then after a while you're like, fuck, I got to put this thing out again.
Right.
I mean, it's just like anything, right? It's like laundry.
Right, exactly. Never ending, or dishes, or whatever.
Yes.
It is such a brave thing to start a podcast. It does take that leap of bravery to be able to put yourself out there. And especially if you are doing solo episodes, like you're saying, talking to the void, like it is a leap of bravery, but it is so worth it when you get to connect with the right people and you see who's listening and you hear their feedback. And you know, like you said, you work with women, you're a business mentor. I'm sure it's similar to when your client has a big win. If someone gets a win listening to your podcast, you should feel like on top of the world, right?
Yes.
Like that's huge.
I think the only thing about that is it's hard to know.
Yeah, it is.
It's not an immediate feedback loop like it would be on social media, or maybe you send an email, or, you know, I got a call from a client yesterday with a huge win, and that's amazing. You sort of get bits and pieces from podcasts, and possibly because I'm not quite doing it the right way yet. Like I haven't quite found because I'm pivoting, I haven't quite found that niche of people that are going to respond. But I also am like, walking out of my office and they're like, oh, I love your podcast this week. Or just in general, like, hey, I loved that episode, or I listened today, or that sort of thing. You sort of forget that, man, you are in people's lives. Mm-hmm. Like I had somebody say to me, oh, this was maybe a couple weeks ago. She was like, oh, I was doing dishes all day, or, doing my like housework or whatever. And I had you in my earpods or AirPods. I'm old. I don't remember if they're earphones or AirPods or whatever. And it's sort of interesting to think that you are in somebody's home, right? Like your voice is in somebody's car, or when they're taking a walk, or, when they're trying to lay down and go to sleep. Oh, whatever it is, it's a pretty intimate place to be when you really think about that, when you really dig down into like, when do you listen to, like, I listen to podcasts when I'm walking, or when I'm in my car by myself, or on a long road trip, or whatever it is. And that's a pretty intimate place to be. We don't think about that very often as podcasters, I don't think, but it is I think it's a really honorable place to be. I'm really grateful that people are spending part of their time with me.
I agree. Yeah, I think that is easy to forget. It's easy just to put out content and not think about who's going to be on the other side or where they're listening. But they are, there's no other type of content where you can have that long of undivided attention of your audience, right? Instagram posts are one thing, stories are another, but like a 45-minute podcast episode, they're locked in, they're listening, they want to hear you. And no one's going to tune into a podcast that they don't want to listen to, right? So they are coming to listen, and they're taking that time out. So, make it worth it for them, and really just be vulnerable and share your honest self on your show.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you have to sort of remind yourself is like, I don't continue to listen to somebody that I'm like, this isn't serving me anymore. I just find a new one, right? Like there's, I don't know what, a million podcasts out there, but the ones that I am loyal to, man, I am on it every week. I want their episode coming. I'm ready to see the recently added, like I'm ready to go out there. I also am I get really annoyed by the sound. Like the quality. If the quality is not there for me, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably pretty common. I get really annoyed by people's, like, if I can't connect with your voice, and that's the other thing is like, people are like, well, I hate my voice, I can't be a podcaster. Oh, Jesus Christ. We're all, we all have weird voices. Nobody likes to hear their own voice.
Yep.
It's just, nobody does. And nobody cares about your voice, really. They care about your message. Now, if you're belching into the mic every other minute or something, it's probably super annoying. But mostly I don't think about people's like tone of voice. I just want to know their message, and I want to make sure that it's loud enough.
Yeah.
That's it.
I agree. Yes. The quality of the audio is much more important than I think a lot of podcasters think. It doesn't need to be like studio quality, like you're, recording somewhere that's meant specifically for podcasting. If you have a good mic and like no kids screaming in the background and your dog's not losing his mind, you're going to be good.
Agreed. There's just, again, do it in your closet. Cool. Yeah, I'm totally into that. I just think that if you're going to do a really good podcast, you need help. And that's sort of my MO for everything is like, we cannot do this life alone. You need to outsource. You can't do it all. You just can't. And you can do it for a while, but you are signing yourself up for burnout and then no podcast.
Yep. Right. Like, do you want to hire help and have a podcast, or do you want to, hate your life in it and you end up resenting your podcast? That's what I've found.
Yes.
Like you end up like truly resenting it, and you're like, if I have to do one more episode, or if one more guest emails me, or if I have to sit down and record a stupid podcast one more time, like that's where you don't want to be. That's where you definitely don't want to get to.
And that's actually where I ended up getting. And here's what ended up happening for me was I I went to my producer and I said, I think I need to take a break. And she was like, you can take a break, but we have a contract. It's 30 days. I was like, okay, I'm going to pay her for 30 days anyway. I better get my shit together. And so actually what I ended up doing, and this is how you and I connected, is I went out onto Threads of all places. I never go onto Threads. Well, I do now, but I never go onto Threads. It was just like not a platform I used. It was connected to my Instagram, but like I never went out there and did anything except that one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try this. I was on there. I was like, whatever. I'm just going to say, hey, I'm looking for guests who have said, fuck it, actually I can, for my podcast, which is called #ActuallyICan. And I got like 200 responses, like almost immediately. And I was like, oh my God. Well, of course, now my Threads is just filled with podcasts. I can't get away from podcasts now. But I ended up connecting with like some of the coolest, most amazing women that like came out of the, I mean, I just had like interview after interview after interview of just like amazing. I mean, I had to like have an application process. I had never had to do that. The other thing is most of the original interviews I had were people I knew in some way or another, right? Like they were either a colleague or a fellow entrepreneur or a friend of mine or somebody I admired or whatever. But these people were reaching out to me, which was like a turning of the tables. And I was like, oh my God. And all of a sudden I ended up with like 20 podcast episodes that were just banked.
Yep.
And I thought, oh man, this is actually kind of the way to do it. I had a podcast, 2 podcast episodes every week. I learned something new from every single one. It was amazing. And then I sort of like ran out of people again. And I was like, oh, I started to feel that like, I don't want to have to do that again. I don't want to have to like look for guests again. It just didn't feel right. And I said to Chanley, I said, listen, I think I got to pivot a little bit. Like we got through that part, but I think I have to pivot. And she's like, I agree. I think you should just do more solo stuff. And so that's where we're at now.
I love it. I love the progression, and I'm excited to continue to follow your podcast and where you take it. Before we get into some rapid fire questions I have for you, I do want to hear more about your business mentorship and the type of women that you support and how you support them, because we didn't get too deep into your story, but you have owned multiple business in the past. You're a multi-passionate entrepreneur, so you have the perspective of all these different angles when you're helping your clients, which is so valuable for, anyone that's looking for a business coach. Like, you could find a specialist. You could also find someone who is multi-passionate. Really, there's benefits in both. So can you tell us more about your mentorship?
Yeah, of course. It really came from sort of the school of hard knocks, right? Like in the last 5 years, I've opened 4 businesses, 5 businesses, 9 LLCs. So in the last 5 years, we opened a wine bar. We started with a specialty cut flower farm at our home. We bought a coffee shop. We opened an ice cream and candy store. We purchased 2 commercial real estate properties. We sold a business. We sold a commercial real estate property. My husband also owns his own business. So, but this is all in the last 5 years, and I'm 47. So it's been since I was just over 40. And it really got to a place where I wanted to run businesses. I wanted to build businesses, but I sort of bucked the tradition of you can't get close to your employees. You can't make it personal. It's just business. Like all of those. And I was raised by an entrepreneur, and he was a typical male entrepreneur, which if you ask me, all of the rules out there are made for male entrepreneurs that don't necessarily, I'm not saying not everybody, but typically women with children or just married are responsible for the kids, responsible for the home, responsible for they're working full time, and they're also doing that. And for business owners, it's almost even worse because you have the flexibility. So even though my husband owns his own business and I run 3 other businesses plus a coaching practice, I'm still responsible for going to get the kids when they're sick. I'm still responsible for all the doctor's appointments. I'm still responsible for the vet appointments, for the dogs and the dishes and the laundry and, all of the things. And while I'm not complaining, we stepped into those roles long ago. And rather than just like upsetting the apple cart, we just do it. And that's just what we do. And it is what it is. But what I realized was there wasn't really anybody talking about that. There wasn't really anybody like, hey, does this seem right? Does this seem like why are we just all sort of rolling over and doing this? But also the biggest piece of what I figured out is it's extremely isolating. Female business ownership, I don't care how you're doing it or what you're doing, it's extremely lonely and you don't ever know if you're doing it right. And we get fed, of course, from social media. And don't get me wrong, I love social media. Social media brings me lots of clients, but it also, I'm very intentional about my social media, but we get into a trap of comparison, competition. They're doing it this way. I should do it this way. They're way further along than I am. What am I doing wrong? Why am I burned out? Why do I feel like shit? Why am I emptying a bottle of wine every single night to just try and get through the next day, which is what I did for years? Why am I eating like shit? Why can't I get any exercise in? Sort of why? And the answer is that we never put ourselves first. And I don't care if you are an entrepreneur or you're just a midlife female with kids or without kids, like we just don't put ourselves first. We've never been given permission and we have never given ourselves permission. So my ideal client is somebody that's like right at burnout, right at like, I want to quit this thing. I started this thing with the hope and the promise of freedom and flexibility. And I am shackled to this thing. I hate it because my staff hates me. I hate my staff. Nobody's doing their job. I can't get anything done. I've got a to-do list 400 miles long. My kids are unhappy. My husband's unhappy. The dogs are sad. I mean, there's just like not enough time, not enough energy. I'm trying to be perfect and I'm failing at everything. And I was there. I know all of that. Like, ask me how I know this. I know all of this because I was there and I was drowning myself in a bottle or 2 bottles of wine every single day. And I finally just said, I can't afford not to make all of this work. I have to figure out a way to do it. And the only thing I did was take care of myself. I put myself before everybody else. I put some real hard boundaries down and just said, if I don't take care of myself, nobody's going to be able to take care of all of this. So my mentorship or my business coaching really came out of a place of I wanted to take care of myself. And I felt like if I could help somebody else, that would also fill my cup. And so I went through a coaching certification. It was 13 months long through the Mind Rebel Academy. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I didn't really want to pigeonhole myself into like only female entrepreneurs. I wanted to work with like just midlife women. But what I realized is that's what I know. I know how hard this is. I know how isolating it can be. I know how the bottom line is like, what? I don't know how I'm going to make rent next month. I don't know how I'm going to pay payroll. Those are really scary feelings, especially if you have staff. It's like, oh my God, these people also depend on me. So I could go into this all day long, but what I ended up doing was taking a whole lot of one-on-one clients. I love it. I love one-on-one clients, but I also figured out like I was burning myself out. You can only do so many one-on-one clients. And the other thing is lots of female entrepreneurs either in the beginning stages or at any point really have a hard time affording $3,000 or $5,000 worth of coaching. And the people that need it the most are the people just starting out, right? Like that need checklists and that need somebody to be there just to like, hey, does this sound like a good idea? Is this stupid? Am I doing this right? Whatever. And so what I realized and what I have just launched, I'm going to give myself a shameless plug here.
Please.
The Actually We Can Collective. So two things. One is it's a community. It's an online Circle community. So Circle is a platform you can go on to. And it is a bunch of female entrepreneurs that are in there. I am giving away all of my PDFs. All of my courses are going to live inside this community. It's $24 a month. You can get access to me. I do live workshops. I'm basically just sharing all of my stuff there because what I realized was I have a lot to share, but I also know that the people that need it the most can't afford the big one-on-one coaching sessions. And that's not really what I want to do. So I created this community. It's amazing already. I'm very excited about it. It's called Actually We Can. So actually I can, actually we can.
I love it.
Yeah. And it's been great so far. So that is sort of my long game is I'm going to always have this community. It's always going to have a resource vault of all of my PDFs, all of my courses. I've got a business 101 course in there, a place for all of that to live, but more importantly, a place of collaboration over competition. Like there's just so much to go around. We talk about money in there. We talk about money mindset a lot. So that's sort of one of the places. And then the other thing that I started about a year ago was the Female Founders Collective. And that is a free Zoom 1 hour every Wednesday. We meet on Zoom. You can come anytime. It's free. It will always be free. This is the thing I give back. I host it every single Wednesday. You can log on and we just basically introduce ourselves, tell people about our business, sort of perfect our elevator pitch. And then we just chat about things that are going on in the world, not politics, but we do chat all things like, hey, this is a challenge for me, or this is annoying for me, or this is what I have coming up that is like, what do you guys think about this? We celebrate our wins in the community. We have a room that's called the brag room. I like bring me all your wins. Where can we really share that anymore? And I want to be able to celebrate everyone. So that's sort of what I'm doing right now. I'm still taking one-on-one clients and I have quite a few people that are like one-off, like I need 1 hour of your time. I still do that. You can schedule any of that on my website. I have a blog out there, the podcast, lots of irons in the fire, but I'm really trying to concentrate on this community because I think it's something that's really needed.
Very cool. Well, I'll put all your links in the show notes so people can connect with you.
And there's a 7-day free trial. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Very cool. Thanks for sharing all of that. I think that's important for listeners to hear. So I just have a few rapid fire questions for you. Whatever comes to mind, let's just go with it. So my first question for you is, do you have any podcasts that you recommend everyone listen to?
Oh gosh, I have a friend that just started The Magic of Manifestation, and her name is Jen Knight, and she is one of those people that's like doing it by herself in her closet.
We love that.
Yes, she just decided to do it. She's got little snippets. It's like 25 minutes of really just the magic of manifestation. She's a manifestation coach, and they're just really great short tips and tricks about how manifesting and your energy and changing, your mindset. I have just loved it. She's very conversational with herself, which is like, it's a talent. I think it's a real skill. If you've never interviewed, I think it's easier to do, by yourself because you don't know any different. But she's one of my faves.
Very cool. Okay, awesome. I'll put that in the show notes. You told us about your podcast pet peeves as a listener, bad audio quality. Do you have any other ones?
I don't think so. The audio is just like a thing for me. Yeah. And when I have fucked up my own audio, it's been really annoying to me. I had like the greatest episode of all time and I forgot to turn on the mic.
Happens.
Yeah. So the episode was so good and Chanley did the best she could and like tried to do the audio and we put it out anyway. And I listened to it and I was like crying because I was like, this is so bad, but it was such a good episode. And so it's hard, but shit happens. And I think people can be forgiving and I certainly can too. But that is just one of my things. I don't know why. I'm just probably sensitive to it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Around Halloween last year, I posted like a podcast scary stories post, and one of them was like, you forget to turn on your microphone.
Yeah. I did it.
Nothing scarier.
Nothing really scarier, or forgetting to press record. I've also done that.
Yep.
And had to go back to the guest and was like, hey, we need to like redo this entire episode. But it was fine. She did it.
Right. No, scary stories.
Oh.
Okay, I just have two more for you. What is the best advice you've ever received about podcasting?
Oh, I mean, it's such a great question. And this is going to be so cliche, but just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, quit thinking about it so much. And I was thinking about it. Like, why am I not doing this? And it was fear, of course, fear of like putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. And, you know, I think we're all afraid of the hater, right? We're all afraid that somebody's going to come back and be like, you have no fucking business doing this. Or, you know, imposter syndrome is real for all of us. And I think when I finally got over that, when I finally just hit the road and was like, I am doing this for me, and I'm doing this for the people that need to hear it and that are actually looking for me. I don't care what other people say about it. And that was the best piece of advice I received. And
I love it.
There were a number of people, like not just one person said, you should just do it. A number of people were like, what do you have to lose? Like, what's the worst that can happen? Plus, I had already done it. I had already started a podcast, and I mean, it quote unquote failed. That's not necessarily true. It just ran its course. But it was it was almost easier to fail and do it again because nothing broke me. Like, nothing got broken from it. No, nobody died. Nobody got hurt. It was fine. It was just a podcast, and I did it again.
Right.
So if you're thinking about it, I would say just do it. What's the worst that can happen? But also, what's the best that can happen? Like, what's the goal? I just really want to help like one person. So if I can just like continue to help one person with every episode, I don't have any other goals than that, really.
Yeah. Right. Like your last podcast episode, you're going to have to remind me her name, but the first little bit of it was like this or better.
Oh, Katy. Yeah. It was so good. Yeah, that one was really good. And that, again, she came from Threads. We have like no idea how we met. And now we're like, she's in the community. She came to Female Founders. Like, we're talking about retreats. And you just never know the connection you're going to get from this. That's the other thing, is like, this is not local. I mean, I have somebody that listens to my podcast in the UK and Australia. Mm-hmm. Like, what? That's so cool. Bonkers to think about that. And to think that like somebody you've never met in your life is listening to you every single time you put something out.
Yes. Yep. I have clients that their one goal is to have one listener from at least every state. And so she had
so cool. I think it's
so
like funny. Amazing. And I think we also live in our little bubbles, right?
Yeah.
Like, I live in a very small town.
Yeah.
And of course the people around me here listen, right? Because they know me and they can hear my voice and whatever it is. But to think that there are people in like Oklahoma that might be listening on a day that like I'll never meet them is just such a fascinating thought that this is the platform that can do it.
Theirs was South Dakota. They got everyone except for South Dakota, and they're like, we need one. So if you're listening, you're in South Dakota, go listen to Wellness Rebranded. It would mean the world to them.
Oh my God. I'm going to find somebody in South Dakota today and I will share it. That is my jam. I will totally do that. Yeah.
Okay. Last question I have for you. What is the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself through podcasting?
Oh, I mean, I think lots of lessons, and at the risk of being called a bragger or called anything, is I am good at it. I feel like I do have a message to share, and I feel like I can connect with people over this microphone. And that is something that I never would have given myself credit for in any other way. I don't feel that way about social media.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really feel that way about any other real way that I put myself out there except this. I feel very in my element when I do this. Also, I have realized that I can make other people feel really comfortable in a situation like this where they've never been on a podcast before. I mean, I've had people that have never been on podcasts before come off my podcast with me and been like, I was so nervous about this and this was so easy, which to me just feels like, oh my God, you tried something new. It didn't kill you. And you can you can do that. See, it wasn't that bad.
There we go.
Yeah. So I think that there's really a lot of power in giving yourself grace enough to do something well. And the greatest thing about this right now is my dad, who's 75, thinks I am he doesn't know anything about podcasting. Mm-hmm. And he thinks I'm the number one podcaster out there. I'm not kidding. It is
so sweet.
The cutest thing. He has never listened to a podcast before. He found out I had never told him I was doing a podcast because he doesn't, that's not his jam. He doesn't care. He doesn't know. And I was whatever. And then he called me one day and was like, hey, your brother and sister told me that you're doing some kind of podcast or something. And he's like, is it on the internet? Cute, right? And so my brother or sister sent him the link. Well, now he listens to every single one, which I always have to be a little bit careful that he's because I say shit about him, right? But at the same time, he just texted me last night and he was like, oh, you were just born to do this. He was like, are you making $1 million yet? Right? He just cannot understand that I'm not the only one doing this.
That's adorable.
So it's really cute. And that's just one of the cute, I think I'll always do it as long as he's alive so he can get it. He lives out in Nebraska. So this is his lovely little connection to me now. So
I love that.
I know. It's really cute.
That's so sweet. Thanks you so much for sharing that story. Well, Katy, I've had so much fun chatting with you today. I'm going to put your links in the show notes. I'll put your podcast, obviously, your Instagram, your website. Is there anything else where you want the audience to go and connect with you? Maybe Threads?
Yeah, Threads. I'm kind of out there.
Is fun.
It is fun. It's I only connect with women on there. It's there's the algorithm is insane on that thing. I don't understand. Yeah. I can't do anything on Instagram. I love Instagram, but I can't move the needle on that thing for the life of me. But man, Threads, I put something out and I'm like, man, all the right people find me. It's great. The only other thing would be a link to my community because that's my baby right now.
Perfect. I'll put that all in there. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
You just have so much wisdom to share of the podcast, and I feel like this will inspire a lot of people just to take that leap and feel like actually they can.
Yes, actually we can. You can. I can. Everybody can.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me in the Podcast Cafe. I hope you're leaving with fresh ideas and inspiration to take your podcast to the next level. Remember, podcasting is a journey and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Let's connect. Be sure you follow me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production or visit espressopodcastproduction.com for more tips, resources, and behind-the-scenes insights. I'd love to hear about your podcasting journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling extra generous, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more podcasters just like you find the show. Until next time, grab your coffee, keep creating, and I'll see you back here in the Podcast Cafe.